There's a reason your life feels like it's stuck in limbo every time you open your mouth about your plans. You think you're being transparent. You think you're manifesting. But what you're actually doing is weakening your energy, bleeding out the force that was supposed to carry you through. You've been taught to share everything, to be open, to be honest, but nobody told you the truth. Some things lose power the moment they are spoken. How many times have you felt excited about an idea, only to feel it fade after telling someone? You thought they'd support you. You thought you'd feel more confident. Instead, you walked away feeling more confused, more exposed, more doubtful than before. That's not a coincidence. That's what happens when you trade your inner vision for external validation. And that validation, it's an addiction. The craving for someone to say, "Wow, that's amazing," becomes stronger than the actual desire to do the thing. You stop building and start performing. You rehearse your life for an audience that doesn't even care, and in doing so, you dilute your direction. Every time you speak prematurely, you're not creating clarity, you're creating noise. It's not just about the people who listen, it's about what happens inside you when you speak too soon. Your brain releases dopamine, that same chemical associated with reward. But here's the trick, you're being rewarded for the illusion of progress, not real progress. You feel good temporarily, but nothing has actually moved, and that momentary high replaces the hunger that once drove you. You told the story, so now the brain thinks the job is done, and it's not. Napoleon Hill understood this long before neuroscience did. He warned about the danger of talking your dreams to death, because when you do that, you're inviting energy and not all of it is good. Every time you expose your dream, you expose it to interpretation, judgment, envy, fear, and even if none of it is said out loud, you feel it. You internalize it. You start adjusting your vision to match their doubts. But here's the worst part, you often don't notice it happening. You keep sharing. You keep hoping that this time someone will really get it. But they don't. And deep down, you start shrinking your ideas to fit the reactions you've received. You start editing your dreams before they even have a chance to exist. That's not alignment. That's sabotage. And sometimes it comes from the people closest to you, the ones who mean well, the ones who smile and nod but whose energy shifts the moment they feel you rising above what they're comfortable with. It's not always hatred. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's comparison. But it's always interference. And this is the part they never told you. Your energy is sacred. It's not meant for public consumption. It's not meant to be displayed, dissected, debated. It's meant to be protected, especially in the early stages, especially when it's still forming. Because that's when it's most fragile, that's when it's most alive. Think of it like a seed. You don't plant it and immediately dig it up to show someone. You let it root, you let it grow, you let it break the soil when it's ready. If you expose it too soon, it dies, not because it wasn't meant to grow, but because you didn't give it time to breathe in the dark. If this message stirred something inside you, maybe a truth you've been avoiding or a strength you forgot you had, leave a comment below and tell me how it hit you. And if you're on this journey with me, don't forget to subscribe. There's so much more waiting for you. This is what you need to understand. Your silence is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's the recognition that some things must be kept close, nurtured, incubated. Not everything is ready for the light. Not everything is meant to be seen by eyes that haven't earned the right to witness your becoming. But most people don't see it this way. They fear silence. They associate it with loneliness, with insecurity. So they fill the air with explanations, announcements, declarations of what they will do. But the truth is, most of them never do it. Because deep down, they were never building, they were performing. You are not here to perform, you are here to transform. And transformation, real transformation, doesn't announce itself. It becomes, quietly, steadily, unshakably. So if your life feels stuck, if your motivation disappears the moment you start explaining yourself, maybe it's not the dream that's broken. Maybe it's your habit of sharing it with people who can't hold space for it. Stop telling people your plans, not because you don't trust them, but because you trust yourself. Trust the process, trust the timing. Trust that the universe hears the whispers of your soul louder than the screams of your mouth. And as you sit in that silence, something begins to grow, something powerful, something unshakable, and that something is you. Silence is not emptiness. It's not hesitation. It's not fear. It is the soil where your real power begins to grow. We've been conditioned to associate stillness with weakness, To believe that if we're not speaking, posting, explaining, then we're not doing anything at all. But that's a lie, a dangerous one. Because what truly changes your life doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in the shadows when no one is watching, and most importantly, when no one is interfering. Every major transformation starts invisibly. Think about it. When a tree is about to grow, the seed doesn't ask for attention. It goes underground. It decomposes. It dissolves. There's no applause, no validation, just darkness, pressure, silence. But inside that darkness, something is taking shape. Something unstoppable, and it's not visible until it's undeniable. That's how your goals should work. That's how your reinvention should feel. It should be so sacred that even the idea of sharing it feels like a violation. Because when something is real, when it truly matters, you protect it. You don't rush it into the hands of people who might not understand it, or worse, who might try to reshape it according to their limited perspective. There is a hidden power in secrecy, and it's not about hiding out of fear. It's about preserving the spiritual temperature of what you're building. When you expose your ideas too early, you invite projections. And most people don't project strength. They project fear, scarcity, and limitation. They'll tell you to be realistic, to play it safe, to have a backup plan. And before you know it, you're no longer building the dream, you're building a compromise. Napoleon Hill wrote extensively about this. He called it autosuggestion. The idea that what we focus on internally becomes our outer reality. But here's what's rarely discussed. When you tell your vision to someone else, you're no longer only feeding your auto-suggestion. You're exposing it to theirs. You're letting their thoughts, their beliefs, their emotional limits dance around the blueprint of your destiny. And unless you're spiritually fortified, those external vibrations can start to feel like your own voice. That's where the drift begins. You start questioning. You start hesitating, you start modifying what was once crystal clear in your heart, not because you changed, but because the frequency got distorted, because instead of keeping it protected, you made it public. And what's public becomes prey to interference. There's a reason ancient wisdom traditions taught the discipline of silence. In esoteric schools, initiates weren't even allowed to speak of certain teachings until they had lived them fully, because speaking without mastery invites dilution, because truth is fragile until it's embodied. And that applies to your personal mission just as much as it applies to mystical knowledge. So you must ask yourself, are you talking about your next chapter to empower it, or because you're afraid it won't happen without someone else's belief? Are you declaring your goals because you feel strong, or because you feel uncertain and want others to carry part of the emotional load? This is where the shift happens. When you begin to respect your own path enough to walk it quietly, you stop needing others to walk beside you. You stop needing agreement. You stop seeking permission. You enter the realm of creation, not consensus. You become the architect of your own reality, not the echo of someone else's opinion. And the more you build in silence, the more you realize something profound. The silence isn't just protecting your ideas from the world. It's protecting you from the noise inside yourself. That voice that second guesses. That old fear that says, what if it doesn't work? That outdated identity that whispers, who do you think you are to want this? When you remove the audience, you remove the performance. And in that stillness, you begin to hear something far more important than praise. You hear your truth. That truth grows slowly, but it grows strong. It becomes a force that no longer needs explanation, no longer needs to prove anything. It just moves, with clarity, with quiet conviction, with grace. So the next time you feel the urge to announce your progress, to declare your goals to the world, pause. Ask yourself, is this moment asking for movement or for silence? Is it time to plant deeper or to emerge? Because when you learn to honor the seasons of your life, when you stop treating silence like a void and start treating it like a sanctuary, everything changes. The process becomes more than strategy. It becomes sacred, and sacred things, they never need to scream. You may think that silence is about discipline, that keeping your plans to yourself is just a matter of self-control. But what if I told you it's actually about spiritual protection? That behind your constant need to share, to talk, to announce, there's a hidden vulnerability. And every time you open up to the wrong people, you don't just lose momentum, you invite interference. And sometimes that interference doesn't look like negativity. It looks like concern. It looks like politeness. It looks like a smile laced with subtle doubt. But the effect is the same. Your vision begins to fracture. There's a reason monks, shamans, and sages throughout history practiced silence not just as a vow, but as a shield. Because energy is real, intentions are real, and when you speak a dream, you're breathing life into it, but you're also exposing it to every energetic current around you. Most people think resistance only comes from enemies, from people who don't like you. That's not true. Some of the most dangerous resistance comes from people who love you, but don't believe in you. They might never say it out loud, but it's in the way they change the subject. It's in the tone of their voice when they say, "That's ambitious." It's in the glance they give you. The one that says, "You sure about that?" And that glance, that tone, it plants seeds, doubt, insecurity, guilt, and those seeds grow faster than your dream does if you're not vigilant. That's how energy works. It doesn't need words. It only needs presence. It only needs attention. And when you let that attention in before you're ready, it warps everything. Think back. How many times have you felt a surge of inspiration, only to watch it dissolve after telling someone? How many times have you felt strong alone, only to feel small when you tried to share your excitement with others? That's not just coincidence. That's energy misalignment. Your frequency was high, and theirs wasn't. And when you brought them into your vision, you brought their vibration with them. Napoleon Hill wrote about drifting, the state of aimless movement that happens when your mind is no longer fixed on a definite purpose. And one of the fastest ways to start drifting is to let too many opinions into your mental space. Opinions are subtle, sticky, and dangerously contagious, especially when you're still fragile, especially when your vision is still forming. So you must learn to protect your energetic environment with the same intensity you protect your physical space. You wouldn't leave your front door open at night, right? Then why leave your spiritual door wide open for anyone to walk through with their fears, doubts, or passive-aggressive skepticism? This is the discipline of solitude. Not loneliness, but chosen isolation. It's the recognition that your ideas need incubation, not interrogation. That your passion needs purity, not pollution. It's the courage to say, "I don't need feedback right now, I need focus." Most people confuse collaboration with exposure. But if you bring others into the process too soon, you're not collaborating. You're contaminating. Let me give you a real-world example. Some of the most successful creators, innovators, and visionaries went silent long before they went public. Steve Jobs didn't walk around asking if the iPhone was a good idea. He built it. He protected the concept like a secret weapon, because he understood that fragile things don't survive in open air, and it's the same with you. Your next level doesn't need validation. It needs insulation. It needs quiet. It needs boundaries. Not because you're hiding something, but because you're respecting something sacred, your own transformation. This kind of silence is not passive, it's powerful. It says, "I am not here to be understood in the middle. I will be seen when it's done. And in the meantime, I will protect this energy with everything I have." So next time you feel the urge to share your plans, ask yourself, is this person capable of holding this vision without infecting it with their fear? If the answer is no, walk away, not in anger, in wisdom. Not every presence deserves proximity to your purpose. And the more you practice this, the more you'll notice something incredible. Your internal voice gets louder. Your intuition sharpens. Your conviction deepens. You begin to operate from a place of quiet certainty instead of loud insecurity. You no longer need others to believe, because you believe. Your silence has a story. What part of this video spoke to yours? I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments. Your reflections matter here. And if this message felt like it was meant for you, hit that subscribe button and stay close. We're just getting started. And belief, when fully owned, becomes impenetrable. That's when manifestation starts to feel inevitable. That's when the outside world begins to bend in response to your inner world. Not because you forced it, but because you refined it. Alone, silently, precisely. Not all power makes noise. Not all impact seeks attention. In fact, the most dangerous force in any room is the one that doesn't have to prove itself. It simply exists, quiet, composed, unshakable. And this is what most people never understand about true transformation. It doesn't brag. It doesn't broadcast. It builds, brick by silent brick, until the results speak louder than any words ever could. There is a kind of authority that can only be developed in isolation. The type that doesn't seek to impress but to embody. The person who shows up different after months of silence isn't doing it for applause. They've been at war with themselves. They've faced the uncomfortable parts, the boring parts, the doubts, the self-sabotage, and they didn't flinch. They stayed. They endured. And what emerged is not a version that begs for attention, but a presence that commands it. This is the paradox of silence. The more you remove yourself from noise, the more power you gather. The more invisible you become to others, the more visible you become to yourself. You no longer seek reflection through validation. You become your own mirror. And when that happens, everything around you begins to shift. People start to notice, but they can't explain it. They say things like, "You've changed," or "You feel different," but they don't know why. That's because you're no longer trying to convince them. You're no longer leaking energy through explanation, justification, or performance. You've moved into embodiment, and embodiment has gravity. It pulls without effort. It attracts without asking. Napoleon Hill spoke about the mastermind, the invisible alliance that forms when aligned. Energy meets focused direction. But there's another layer to this concept, one he hinted at, but didn't always name outright. Before you can merge with others in power, you must first become whole in silence. You must first know your voice so deeply that no one else's can replace it. Otherwise, every alliance becomes dependency, every collaboration becomes distraction, every influence becomes dilution. We live in a world obsessed with volume. Everyone wants to be loud, everyone wants to be heard, but few realize that silence, real, intentional silence, is not absence. It's concentration. It's all your energy pulled inward, compacted, condensed, waiting for the right moment to explode outward as manifestation. That's what the most powerful people do. They don't broadcast their process. They disappear, and then they return, fully formed, undeniable, unshakable. Think about it. Have you ever seen a lion roar for attention? No, the lion is attention. Its very presence shifts the environment. That's what you become when you stop talking and start building. When you stop seeking permission and start producing results. When you stop hoping to be understood and start understanding yourself. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful. That's just noise trying to cover insecurity. But the one who sits back, who watches, who speaks only when necessary, that's the one everyone starts to respect. Not because they demanded it, but because they became it. That's what you're building in your silence. Not just a project, not just a goal, an identity that doesn't need validation to feel real. There's a moment in every journey when the shift happens, when the need to prove fades, when the urge to update others vanishes, when you no longer care if they get it. Because you're too busy becoming it. And when you reach that place, you stop rushing the process, you stop fearing delays. You realize that every quiet day, every lonely moment, every invisible effort was necessary. It wasn't punishment, it was preparation. You begin to see silence not as absence but as alignment, not as lack but as leadership. The kind of leadership that doesn't need to declare anything. It just walks in the room and everything changes. That's where you're headed. If you don't quit. If you don't break the process just to feel seen for a moment. If you don't trade the long-term power of embodiment for the short-term thrill of attention. And once you feel this kind of strength, you can never go back. You can never again be satisfied with being heard just to feel relevant. You'll crave depth, not applause. You'll value presence over popularity. You'll understand that some of the most important parts of your evolution happened when no one was watching, when no one clapped, when no one asked how you were doing, and you kept going anyway. That's who you are now. Someone who no longer explains, but executes. Someone who doesn't reveal intentions, but reveals outcomes. Someone who can walk into silence and come back a different creature entirely. There comes a moment when silence must end. When the transformation you've built in the dark begins to shine on its own. But even then, it doesn't arrive with noise. It arrives with presence. It doesn't beg to be seen. It simply is. And in that moment, you realize something profound. Silence was never about hiding. It was about preparing for the moment when you no longer needed to speak, because your reality speaks for you. We live in a culture that confuses movement with progress, exposure with power, performance with truth. But if you've made it this far, if you've walked through the quiet valleys of self-doubt, resisted the temptation to explain yourself, and chosen to build instead of broadcast, then you've already crossed into a different kind of life. One where your energy does more than your words ever could. Still, there's a time when you must emerge, when your silence transforms into action, and the action speaks louder because it's rooted in stillness. This is the moment when the plan you protected finally takes form, not because the world asked for it, but because it's ready, and so are you. But here's the secret. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to go back and tell the ones who doubted you, because the highest proof of success is peace, not the applause, not the attention, but the quiet knowing that you did what no one saw, and now you live what everyone feels. There's something sacred about arriving quietly, about letting your work enter the world without explanation, without begging to be accepted. Because when the work is pure, when it's built on foundation rather than validation, it finds its place. It attracts the right people. It flows to the right spaces. And you don't have to force it. You just have to honor it. Was there a moment in this video that felt like it was speaking directly to you? Share it with me in the comments. Your voice is part of this space too. And if this kind of truth feeds your soul, make sure to subscribe so we can keep walking this path together. The final test of your journey is this. Will you remain silent long enough to let your life speak? Not your posts, not your speeches, your life, the way you move, the energy you carry, the results you live in. Will you let your discipline be your voice? Will you let your peace be your power? If the answer is yes, then you're no longer chasing the outcome. You've become it. You've become the person who doesn't say what they're going to do. They just do it. And the world catches up when it's ready. Now, as this video ends, I want to leave you with this. Your silence is a language only the future understands. So speak it fluently. Protect it fiercely. And when the time comes to act, let your results make the announcement. Thank you for walking with me through this journey. If something inside you shifted today, if you felt seen, if you felt challenged, if you felt understood in a way words rarely offer, then this space is yours. Don't keep it to yourself. Share your truth in the comments below. Let me know how this message resonated with you. And if you're building something in silence, tell me what you're protecting. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next video that's already waiting for you on the screen. It was made with the same depth, with the same fire, and it might just be exactly what your soul needs to hear next. I'll meet you there.